Microsoft announced a thing.
You want to speculate?
I mean, when in Rome, which is where we live and operate, and
Yep. Speculation.com. So there was a 1 minute video posted yesterday.
it had a plethora of information, by the way.
Yep. It's one of those, it's like the opposite of a Steven Sinofsky blog post. Instead of being like 8,000 words long, where you have to parse it for the two things that make any sense at all, or were the pertinent thing, it's just a minute long, but yeah, dense with information and a lot of, I don't know what you call it, parsing, I guess, tea leaf reading.
Yeah. So
That
yesterday,
kind of thing.
Xbox, or Sarah Bond specifically, which was not Phil Spencer, but notably, I'm not reading too much into that, but it wasn't him, which, whatever,
Yeah.
announced a multi-year agreement with AMD. Basically, AMD is going to be the chipset behind their next console or device, I guess, however you want to frame this. They also said handhelds uh, as well during that statement. And they also said multiple stores during that statement. And they also
hmm
said backwards and forward compatibility, which to me, that was like a non-question that was out there. But at least,
Well, but tied into all this is this speculation based on lots of evidence, by the way, that the next generation Xbox consoles,
mhm.
right, will be PC/Windows based, right?
Yep.
And just real quick, Xbox One, Xbox Series XS are AMD. So it's weird to me they didn't say extend, expand this
Extinguish.
partnership because whatever, but okay. Anyway, they've settled on AMD. So uh, all of everything you just said almost needs to be parsed
Yeah.
further. Multiple stores, right? That either means that Xbox as a console is going to support multiple stores like we see on the PC,
Hmm.
or more likely that it will just be Windows and that Windows already supports multiple stores. And
Right.
Microsoft's plan is to integrate Epic Games, Steam, whatever, into the app so you can access your different libraries from one place, right? The dream, right? Um, so where do you land on that? What do you think? Do you think this is Xbox console is still a discrete thing that's separate from Windows and is now going to have multiple stores?
Yeah, they didn't dispel any of that. So
I know. I
people are
know.
like, what they said they're building a console. Like what is a console? A console is just a PC that's designed to be in the living room controller first. Well,
People are freaking out about every aspect of this, dude. So look, the fundamental, like there is the fundamental difference between the PC and the console, any console, is that the PC is an open platform in
yep.
the sense that you could put a app store, a game store on there and do your own thing. And Steam has done this, Epic, etc. You can't do that on a console. This is a lockbox. It's a walled garden, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But the fundamental advantage, or a fundamental advantage of the of a PC, is that it's infinitely scalable. That you could tomorrow go and buy a new graphics card, and the games you already have will look better. That's
Hmm.
amazing. It's also complex, and there are things around PCs that are, they update all the time. They're unreliable, blah blah blah, whatever. Which, some of that stuff has gotten better. So people are like, well, the the beauty of a console is you just turn it on and you play,
Right.
pretty much,
That
right?
that is like my I just want to be able to sit down, press this button. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what it is under there that gets me into that experience, that I'm not sitting there waiting for drivers to update,
Yeah,
for Windows to run the latest, patch Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday that they're now doing. I
yep.
don't want to have to wait for Windows 25 H2 to install. Like
Sure.
I
But
just,
but
I
what
just want to
if
play.
Windows was this thing where we didn't have the shell and all those notifications and the start bar, the taskbar and the start menu and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. What we had was a thing that was stripped down and in basically like a do not disturb game mode kind of a thing, with a front end that was the Xbox app essentially, and you just did one thing at a time, basically playing a game, and that it was the same kind of experience as a console.
Yeah, they could they could maybe call this like this experience like an ally. and then the higher version, like would be the Ally
Yes.
X, right?
Well,
It's your
that's
ally.
so this is part of the speculation that this
Yeah.
is a first peek at
Oh, I
what they
guarantee you
envision
that
for the next
that
console.
ROG is. I bet that they're behind the scenes. Microsoft is like, look, we'll give you this stuff for free, like the software or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you
Yep.
just build the hardware. We will no royalties. We'll help develop it. We'll
Yep.
help get
We
that
need an
experience out
Xbox
there.
button on there. We'll do
Yep.
the software.
Because
We
what
got the
is this,
guys,
right?
we
All
got
this
David
is an
Cutler and his
Xbox
team
button.
working on the software.
That's all this is an Xbox button,
That's right.
and it launches an
So,
experience.
so the people who I'm not, it's probably not the same people necessarily, but the same people, let's say, or in the same way that some people can't stand that Xbox is more than a console,
Mm-hmm.
that somehow this is given up some huge advantage or something. We also hear these arguments that like the thing we're describing is not a console. That's not what consoles are. Consoles are this regimental thing that is this thing, and developers have a target that they know they can access for several years. That's not going to change, and that's part of the underlying reliability and consistency and yada yada yada. To which I would say that is complete nonsense. That is not what a console is. Consoles have evolved over time. Xbox One, there was the tank, there was the S, there was the X, and each of those had different improvements over the other.
I,
Xbox 360
I
did
was
the
about to
same
say the
thing.
360s. There was you didn't have the hard
720p,
drive.
1080i, 1080p.
Yeah.
Hard drive, solid state. Exactly. Xbox Series X and S, they did things a little differently by coming out to market with
Mm-hmm.
two different versions at the same time, having a tiered thing. Kind of like you have PCs that are like a base model and a
Yeah.
high performance model.
Yep.
So I, th- there can be an Xbox, whatever they call that, the certified design for Xbox program, whatever it is, that now applies to this new PC platform that's based on Windows. But the idea is that you as a customer are going to have the best of both worlds. You'll have that consistency, reliability, hopefully, right? Battery life, efficiency, whatever it is. You'll have this library of games that will play across any of these things. But if you spend more to get more, you might even have systems where you can pop out the card and get a new graphics card, whatever, we'll see. But you will have a better experience, but it's a tiered experience. So we've gone from like, well, so far two models, current gen. There were three versions previous and three or four, depending on how you look at it, for Xbox 360 to just a range that's variable over time. It's Windows. It's literally the best of both worlds. I, I I'm confused why any Xbox fan would not want
Yeah.
this. Assuming it works, that's the trick.
That
Is
the thing
do we
that
get?
the
Yeah.
hiccup is one, assuming that Microsoft delivers a seamless gaming experience through this mechanism is a little.
Well,
Ugh.
I
But
mean, yeah.
but
So
the other side of that too is the chat and integration system that is in Xbox today, that is we know as Xbox Live, is very good, very good. And
yep.
so the concern, at least in my brain, is that that system in this new world has to be just as good, if not better, than what they have today. Because what the experience today is very polished. It's
All
probably
right,
one
so
of the most
that
polished
yeah.
pieces of things that they do.
I was when Xbox Live was invented in 2002 or whatever, released. I'm sure there were like 5 core features online,
Yeah.
multiplayer. But this thing you're describing, the interaction, you have a friends list, you can communicate with them. This evolves over time, obviously, but that was always core to the platform. So that's the one piece on the PC I can't say I've experienced with, but not through any plan of my own. I have been playing games on PCs, and I've written about this a ton. We've talked about this, but PC hardware, just basic PC hardware, like current gen Intel AMD chips with no dedicated graphics,
Mm-hmm.
are phenomenal at
Yeah.
playing games right now.
Yep.
That's amazing. For the most part, the experience is much as it is on console. Like I launch Call of Duty, I play Call of Duty. I would say 1 out of every 5 or 6 times I have to update Call of Duty first, but okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's supposed to happen in the background, whatever. But I play the game. I play with a controller, right? Full screen experience, whatever. I don't do other things on that computer. If you had like 2 screens attached and you tried to type over here, that doesn't actually work. The game
Yeah.
minimize, that doesn't work. But that's not what this is. We're talking about a console, right? The only thing that I've seen that I've been impressed by the kind of reliability, performance, yada yada yada. But the one thing that's happened to me recently that's really upsetting is I'll get something will happen on my phone, and the my what do you call it? The phone link dialogue comes up
Mm-hmm.
over the game. So my phone's ringing. It has dulled or didn't mute it, but lowered the sound of the game, and it's sitting there on the screen going. That thing shouldn't be able to interrupt a game. Like part of game mode, the thing that's built into Windows that you can't configure anything for, is that it's supposed to not allow that kind of stuff. So I don't know what that is, but whatever. Again, surmountable. You're not going to have phone link on your console thing, right? The whatever that system is called. Um, I I think the pieces are in place for this to work. I think it's right there. And I think this is a good thing. Honestly, to me, the biggest question is that one of the things you said earlier, you listed the 4 or 5 points. It's
Mm-hmm.
backward compatibility.
I don't think
Now,
that was ever a question though.
well, but here's the thing. So it is though. I don't like. I expect like when I'm on a PC and I launch Xbox app, I see my library, whatever that is in Xbox. I don't see my other libraries because not yet. I happen to be an Xbox uh, Game Pass Ultimate, whatever it's called. So I get that stuff, and that's in there too. And you get this whole thing, and you can manage your games and download and install and blah blah blah, whatever. What I don't see is my Xbox games, like meaning my console games. Some of them are play anywhere, right? So if backward compatibility relies on play anywhere, it's going to be good, but it's not going to be everything. If there is some system where you can bring forward your games from previous gen consoles, it's still not going to be everything. That's the thing people
Mm-hmm.
kind of mistake. It's a much bigger selection of the games you bought previously, right? There are licensing issues there. They OG Xbox 360, they've done every game. Every game they can do has been brought forward. That's not changing. Xbox One through Series SX, um, there's no backward compatibility issues yet that I'm aware of. So that stuff should just work. But the fact that that stuff does work between those two console generations hints at the possibility that it will work with this Windows thing, right? Because it's an AMD chip, it's x64.
I would fully expect that it would. The There's no scenario where Microsoft can launch a new console and not support backwards compatibility. That has been one of their hallmarks of like why you would stick with Xbox. And if they do that and they say like, look, here's this new thing we're building, none of that
Yeah.
stuff you bought previously is coming with it. Sorry, like that would collapse their business.
Well, okay, I agree with you, but I also think there's an asterisk to that, which is that don't assume 100% compatibility,
Sure.
right? And think about what Nintendo just did with the Switch 2. I believe the line was most Switch games work fine. Some will be enhanced, right, or have been enhanced, or whatever it is, and then there will be new games, and some of the new games will only work on Switch 2, right, like that kind of thing. It's probably going to be closer to that, and I think it's going to be mostly. Well, I'm not really sure what it's related to. Actually, I'm trying to figure. Like, obviously, it should be easy for any decent modern PC to run a game that was designed for the original Xbox One. Full
Mm-hmm.
stop. The 360 stuff, especially, that was brought forward for that to play on a new console. There's some emulation going on, right? I mean, has to be. Um, it's not running natively, right? These are Power
Yeah.
PC games. So if that worked on an Xbox One and a Series XS, your modern PC based on a Core Ultra chip or an AMD Zen 5, whatever, that should work fine too, right? I don't know if there are licensing issues. Maybe Microsoft, by defining the console, if someone were to complain and say, hey, we didn't license this to you for Windows, we licensed it for Xbox, and they would just say, yeah, this is an Xbox. Maybe. I don't know.
Yep. Which the lawyers will hash out when that comes. I mean, like, who's going to sue Microsoft? Like, I mean, they can. I guess maybe Take Two or some of these
I
EAs.
mean, open AI. I mean, we'll see. So what else? All right. So go through again. You said,
So there's the store. There's backwards compatibility. They said
yeah,
multiple
multiple
form
stores,
factors.
multiple form factors. Yeah.
So that ties into the like, hey, they're building more software than they are hardware. And then there will be a console. I expect them to have a low volume,
Yeah.
whatever Xbox console
Right.
But then they're
Do
gonna be
you?
like, yeah, just go buy one from whoever.
That's right. So that's the thing. We'll see how this thing goes with Asus, right? But um, and look, it's weird to think of like an HP Xbox console. It doesn't make sense on the surface. But then again, HP makes really good gaming PCs. Lenovo makes really good gaming PCs. Acer makes really good gaming PCs. Wouldn't they want to be in this market as well, and
Yep.
then have these upsell possibilities where they'll have tiers of these things? Like we could go from two consoles that have never been updated in any meaningful way since whatever year they came out, 2020, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Or 21? 20, right? During the pandemic. So almost 5 years. No updates that mean anything. Although we could really use like 4 terabytes of storage now, but okay. But that type of stuff is easy on a PC. And the question comes like, well, how or if are these things going to be locked down? Am I going to be able to just replace the SSD and get a bigger one? Which is something you can't really do without spending a lot of money today. Can I add RAM to these things if it's a box in my living room or whatever? We'll see, but even if it was completely locked down, this is better than what we have now. And if there's any sense of PC ecosystem type updating capabilities, this becomes no brainer.
Here's the other interesting thought. So obviously, like Lenovo, Dell, and all these guys are going to want to be like, yeah, we want to build these things because it's another mechanism to help us sell more product at a
Mm-hmm.
probably, I think we probably agree, a premium. There's some sort
Mm-hmm.
of, right? Here, look at this from Microsoft's perspective. Well, obviously, it's a big risk to make this move, but is it either way? They
No,
go from saying
I don't think so.
we're going to build a console which they have all the risk tied up, and they don't make money on the hardware. It doesn't even seem like this
Well,
generation they are either. To
but
go, but hold on, but then they go to this model that they're moving to, and they say, hey, Lenovo, we'll use them as an example. If you
mhm,
want to build an Xbox certified hardware thing, it's got to meet these requirements, and to put that sticker on there, it's
mhm.
$1 per device. They probably just made a whole bunch more for Xbox than they probably did selling actual consoles.
Right. And aside from the obvious things around just choice for consumers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of having Lenovo do this or HP or whomever is that those companies sell devices at volume
And
and
that's what
they
they
get
do. Like that's
it's
what
what
they
they
do.
do and they're good at it, but they also get better prices on components
Yeah.
and get them earlier. So Microsoft sells no Surfaces, they sell no Xboxes. So when they want the RAM or
Mm-hmm.
the SSD or whatever it is that goes into these things, yeah, we'll get to you. But when it's Lenovo, Lenovo owns like whatever it is, 25% of the PC market. They sell millions of these things every quarter. They may only sell 3 Xbox consoles, but it doesn't matter. They're still getting a better price on those components because they're buying them in bulk, right? So it's it's still better, you know. Like I don't. I'm struggling to see where this could be worse. Like I don't think it could be.
No,
Well, which
well,
is terrible, but
with the one caveat being that
yeah.
the software has to work that they're moving towards, right? It has to be the
Yes.
Xbox experience that we know today on the Series X and S. It has to be that experience on a PC that is not bogged down by something running in the background.
You just described my wife's rationale for me taking Adderall for ADHD, which basically boils down to I love you, but I want you to be different. You know what I mean? Which is like, no, it doesn't say it that way, but that's how my brain translates what she says. I'm like, so you like me the way I am, but not really. You want me to be a different
It's the
me.
great Bill Burr joke. The only thing she has to complain about is the
Yeah,
person that I am.
exactly. If it weren't for that, I mean, this would be a perfect relationship. So yeah, another what you're saying then to translate it to the PC is uh, we want everything that's great about the PC in Windows, but we need you to be nothing like the PC in Windows in some ways, right? Because of the constant, the thing I just described, the notification. What the frick is that? That's a problem we had with Meteor Center 1.0 in 2002
Oh yeah.
when you're sitting there with your remote and this Windows notification pops up over the screen and you have no way to deal with it with that remote. You had to go find the mouse and be like an idiot. And, right? This
Yeah.
is how are we? It's 25 years later almost. We're still dealing with this problem. So it can't do that. And I think this ally thing is going to be the first test of whether
Yeah, it's a
they
canary
got it
device. It
right,
is.
right?
I'm convinced of this. Now, the other portion of this is the timeline for release. If you go back, it's not perfect, but if you go back to when they announced the Project Scarlet, wasn't the SNX, it was Project Scarlet, which became the SNX. That was
Hmm.
in June of 2019, and the device shipped the following fall. So basically 14 months after it was announced. So
When you
here we
say
are.
announced, did they literally announce it?
They
Like
announced
there was
Project
a
Scarlet,
yeah.
which was
Okay.
just them working on their next generation devices. And then so you
Okay.
come out again in June with this Xbox AMD announcement. We're working on hardware. So it lines up a release for next fall for the 2026, which is what we had been hearing. Which also, by the way,
Yeah.
interestingly, somewhat times up to the video game event from, what was that, Saturday or Sunday. There was no Halo, there was no Forza, there was really none of those like Hallmark titles because they're like, oh, they're
Yeah.
coming next year.
Right.
Well, if you're launching a console or whatever next year,
You're going
having
to want to
those,
have a bunch of games that
it
people are going
makes
to want
sense
to
to
buy.
ship a
Yeah.
Forza that year instead of this year.
And it's going to be best on that thing. And this is Microsoft has never said this. I kind of just alluded to it, but I'm sure there are now games that only run on X and S, not on one. But am I sure?
Like Flight
There must
Sim,
be. There
I
must
think.
be, right?
Yeah, they're few and far
But
between.
that's what I mean. So for the most part, I think it's fair to describe Xbox One and these more recent consoles as part of the same thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a continuum. Those things, if it plays on the Xbox One, I mean, again, I could be wrong here, but I don't think there is one example of an Xbox One game that doesn't play on Xbox Series X and S. It's almost like we're now on the fourth
Mm.
generation of
Yeah.
Xbox One
Yep.
or whatever, which of course they don't want to keep using that name because that didn't go so well. But
Well,
right.
yeah, because
So
the digital title changed it all. Because it used to be like, oh,
yeah,
we actually got to like print a disc and we actually got to ship a box and we actually got to print a manual. Like now it's just
yeah,
like, okay, we can just target slightly lower specs and like, haha, it still works. Whoops, wrong
right,
button.
right. Yeah.
So,
So to me, I mean, a lot of things are pointing to a lot of things. Is all I'm saying. You know, the the outlier in this whole conversation is ARM, and we know that Xbox at one time was looking at maybe basing the next gen stuff on ARM, and we've talked about all that
yep.
stuff. AMD is known to be working on ARM chips.
Mm-hmm.
I think given the timing, unless there's some blockbuster thing coming from Qualcomm slash Nvidia slash whatever, I guess AMD, uh, I have to assume this thing is x64, but I just want to leave that out as an asterisk too, because there are serious benefits to having ARM on a portable platform,
Right.
especially.
I still think that we'll end up seeing more native on ARM stuff going forward.
Yeah,
Them
I
trying to get
and
there.
part of the reliability stuff we were just talking about, part of the central problem on the PC is much less of a problem on ARM too. Like the ARM based PCs I have are so much more reliable, and I mean that in a super granular way. I mean, you either had the thing going yesterday, you woke up this morning and opened the lid, or maybe it was sitting there for a week doing nothing, and then you open the lid, and what happens? And I'll tell you, on ARM, it's like the most consistent experience of all time. And if you used it recently, it comes on in half of a second. And if it's AMD or Intel, spin the wheel, Bob, because we have no idea what we're going to get. It's all over the place. A lot of times you see that little Windows Hello thing looking for you, the lights on. You're like, I'm here. It's like looking, and you're like, hello. And
Mm-hmm.
meanwhile, the ARM one's already off doing its thing. And like bringing that kind of reliability, not to mention just the efficiency, power management, blah blah, whatever. To That's console class reliability. Like that's what we expect. The point of these devices, you don't think about it. Like if you turn your thing on and had to wait, or if you turn your thing on and it's like, oh, sorry, you got to update this stupid thing, doop, 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 you would notice it, you would start to resent it, and over time, you would feel like you did about a PC. You'd
Yep.
be irritated by it.
We'll see.
Yep.
This has been too many good episodes lately. We got to tone it down. Mm-hmm.